Welcome, everyone. And as George said, happy holidays. Um, my name is Dan, for those of you who don't know, and I have a website called Dan's Tutorials. And basically what I do is I just offer different lessons and tips and classes and things like that on the Apple. But also what I do is I do these AMAs, which is what I'm going to be doing today. And with these AMAs, basically it's an ask me anything. And I do have about a dozen different questions that that people have sent beforehand. So I'm also going to be monitoring the chat a little bit, but I do have like I say, about a dozen questions, although one of them looks like she got it working this morning. So I can probably skip right by that one. Yeah, let's get going with our first question, and that is Apple laptop replacement. Sorry about the typo. Apple laptop replacement recommendations. Somebody asked, this was Karen, asked about, I'm going to pull up my notes here. She has a 2011 MacBook Apple laptop, and it's time to replace it. She edits newsletters, creates other documents using Word, Excel, and Pages, and does some web searches and things like that. So nothing, I'm going to say nothing that critical. It's not like she's doing Photoshop work or editing video in Final Cut Pro. And as long as you're doing stuff like that, I call it the more simple stuff. I don't mean that in a bad way. But more simple stuff for a computer, not for us as humans. But what would you recommend for replacing it? I have always been a fan of the MacBook Air. I love the size of it and the portability of it. And I think it's a great replacement, especially the M1. The M1 chips, as we've all heard about, are just incredible. And it's amazing what you can do with those things. So really what it comes down to is screen size and hard drive size. If you do a lot of photos and things like that, and you do not use iCloud Drive or these shared drives, you want to go with the bigger hard drive. I always recommend going with a bigger hard drive, and I still say to this day, you want to stick with like 512 megabyte minimum. You can go down to 256, but you keep these computers for a few years. Guess what happens in a few years? They fill up. All of a sudden you have to get an external hard drive because you can't replace the hard drives in computers anymore. So I always say, go bigger. If you can, go bigger. This is an investment. Invest a little bit in the larger one. But outside of that, it really comes down to the screen size. My wife wants a new computer, and we're looking at MacBook Pros maybe because she just wants to have a bigger, I think the Air would be perfect for her, but she wants a larger screen. Well, the only way you can really do that is by going to a MacBook Pro. They have a 14 and a 16 inch, so you're going to pay the extra $1. She doesn't need the extra horsepower. She just needs the bigger display. So, like I say, it comes down to what your needs are. As far as the computer itself, if you get an M1, you're probably going to be fine for most stuff. Now, if you do Final Cut Pro editing, okay, maybe you want to go with a MacBook Pro. Now I'm using new software here, and I got multiple cameras coming in here, and just different streams and things like that. But I'm not using an M1, and it seems to be fine. The M1s are great, but you really have to be pushing those things to really get them going. So I would say MacBook Air would be fine. If you need a larger screen, then you'll have to go with the MacBook Pro. And if you want to, invest in, I'd say go with a larger hard drive. One more option is an external display. So you could get a MacBook Air and then buy an external display. So then you have the best of both worlds. Larger display for when you're at home, at the office, smaller display when you're on the couch. You get the portability of it.
Dan, we have a
Yeah.
question that's sort of related to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Debbie Clark. Debbie, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, I asked if you're going to do that and you're doing fairly lightweight stuff on the computer, why wouldn't a 12-inch iPad Pro work instead of
would
getting
work.
an Air?
It absolutely would work. The 12-inch MacBook Pro has, you know, more ports. That's another advantage of going with the MacBook Pro. But in all reality, we use at the school, we use MacBook Pros and we use MacBook Airs. And to me, the portability, now this is an iPad, but to me, the portability of an iPad or of the MacBook Air trumps everything else. I know a 16-inch or even a 12-inch, you know, it's small, but that MacBook Air just, to me, it feels great. And, you know, just holding it, it's light, it's just super convenient. I also see in the chats there that somebody asked about RAM. And if you're sticking with the M1s, which I would recommend, you know, outside if you have to run, you know, XP, which is another question that I have on the slide. But with RAM, again, you can pretty much go with the minimum amount of RAM on those MacBook M1s, MacBook Pros, MacBook Air M1s. My brother, who is much smarter than I am, did some research on it, and now I you know, this is coming from him. I trust him, but I can't say that it came from a trusted source outside of who I know. But he said that with the RAM, basically, if you go with an 8 megabyte RAM on M1, it's almost equivalent to going with 32 megabytes on a standard Intel, because they are that much more efficient. That's what he read on some forum that he got somewhere. Again, I can't really substantiate that, but you know, I trust him. And point being, you can go with a smaller size RAM with the M1s and still, unless you're back into that Final Cut Pro and that heavy editing stuff. That's a whole nother animal. But for most people, if you're doing Pages, iMovie, you know, things like that, you can go with 8 gigabyte, fine. You know, just go with a larger hard drive. So,
okay, thanks. Let's move on to the next question.
All right. The next question I have is, how do you use mission control on the Mac? This came from Linda. And I'm a huge fan of mission control. I don't use it as much as I should, but mission control really comprises of a number of different pieces to it. So what I'm going to do is go to my Mac here. And we're looking at my Mac. Let me move this Stream Deck out of the way here. All right. So we're looking at my Mac here. And basically with mission control, what you are able to do is access all of the windows on your Mac. You can, you know, if you have multiple windows open, you can use different spaces on your Mac. It gives you access to these different pieces. So what I'm going to do is open up a number of Finder windows, and then we can kind of see how this works. So I just, you know, Command in. I'll just kind of open up a few of them here. You know, so I have these different windows open, and let's say you needed to get around. This is a real down and dirty lesson on how the how mission control works. I have a trackpad. So if I wanted to look at all of these different windows, all I have to do is just swipe up with 3 fingers, and now you can see all of the different windows. And when I move my cursor over top of any one of them, you're going to see that there is a blue border around each one, and it tells you what the name of the window is. Now, each one of these are the same because I just duplicated or open up a new window. But if you're looking for a specific window, all you have to do is just click on it, and then it brings that window forward. And this works if you have Safari open. Let's go and open up a Safari window here. And I'm going to bring that over. And let's just open up a few Safari windows. Again, I swipe up with 3 fingers. Now I can see my Safari windows and I can go to the window that I want. I can go over, set up family sharing, dance tutorials, and you just select which one you want. So it's really powerful in that, especially when you have a lot of windows open. You can easily just go and view all of your windows, because we all know how a window will get buried behind another window. Well, now you can just see them all as small thumbnails and select the one that you want. Another thing you can do with it is basically, it's called Spaces, but it's basically like virtual desktops. So when I swipe up here, you're going to see at the very top here, I have desktop. If I wanted to add another desktop, all I have to do is just go over to the far right here, and you're going to see this little plus. And now I have 2 desktops, and I can move these windows to any one of those desktops. And when I do, what it'll do is it'll open up that application in that desktop. So now I have 2 desktops. I basically can swipe back and forth or use the control and the arrows on the key, and you can have Safari open in one space and maybe numbers open in another space. So you're focusing on numbers. All you have to do is just go to desktop 2 here. I can click on it. I'm not going to, because I don't know how it works with Zoom and I might lose you. But basically all you have to do is just click on this, and then you're going to be looking at numbers. If you go swipe up again and you go over to desktop 1, now you're going to be looking at Safari again. So it's a way that you can separate all of your different applications, and you can keep adding windows here. So think of an iPad. A lot of the students at the school that I help out at, this is how they navigate around their Mac, because this is how they are used to it on an iPad or on an iPhone. When you open up an app on an iPad, it opens up in full screen. You open up another app, it opens that up in full screen, just like the iPhone as well. How do you switch between those apps on the iPad or the iPhone? You swipe back and forth. Well, this is basically the same thing on the Mac. This is all done through Mission Control. You can, if you just want to play around with it, Mission Control is just an app. If I were to go to my applications folder, so let's go here, and we're going to go to my applications folder here. You're going to see in here, I have, oh, there it is, Mission Control. I can drag this over to my dock, and then anytime I want to view all of my windows or anything like that, all I have to do is just double click on this. So if you're not used to gestures, or you don't use gestures, like say I have a trackpad, so I use gestures, but maybe you don't, and you don't know what they are. You can just easily add Mission Control to your dock. Like I say, it is just an application. If I drag this down, well, you can see it's in my dock here already. So what I'm able to do is just click on this without using any gestures or anything like that. And now I can see all of my windows. I click on it again, it closes it back up. So that's a down and dirty thing of how Mission Control works. If you want to see more of it, what you can do is go to your system preferences, and there is a preference pane here for Mission Control. And when you click on it, you can actually get a little bit of an idea, and you can see what the key commands are for the different things. But basically, that's a down and dirty lesson on how Mission Control works. It's very powerful. It can be a little confusing if you're not used to it. So I would say take it in small steps. Start out with just, I want to look at all my windows. Then move on to, let's see how the spaces work. And then you can kind of go from there. It's powerful, especially if you use a lot of apps at the same time. So to close all these windows here. And let's see here. Clean up my desktop here a little bit. All right. Our next question is going to be, how do you set up an in-person and a Zoom meeting? Basically, it's a hybrid meeting. And I know that NMUG has talked about this and other user groups have talked about this. Like, what do you do to, if you wanted to have both a Zoom meeting and you wanted to have an in-person meeting? And I don't think anyone's found the perfect solution yet. A lot of schools have experimented with it, with these things, because you know, basically they have in-class environments, but yet they also have kids that are quarantined back at home. So they have to do this in-person versus, or a hybrid kind of thing. So what we have done is basically you just set up a camera. I mean, it sounds really simple, but you can just set up a webcam and you know, point it at the presenter, and then anyone that wants to view that class, such as this, if they wanted to view this webinar or whatever it was, they could log in with Zoom and they'll be able to view it through a webcam. Real simple, but everyone there will also be able to view it. Another trick, which I think is fantastic, but it does require a more high power iPad, but get an iPad that has center stage. With center stage, what you are able to do, the camera on these things is it will follow you around. The camera doesn't actually move, but they added such a wide angle on that iPad camera, the iPad Pro, and I believe you can do it on the iPad 7, but not on the iPad Air, ironically enough. iPad 7 being the lowest price iPad. But basically what you do, and it works with the Zoom, is you just put the iPad pointed at whoever. And since it has such a wide angle, Apple has a nice little algorithm where they will zoom in and then it'll follow the person around. So as the person is walking across the stage or whatever they are, if you have that iPad positioned right, it's almost like the camera is just following them. We used to pay, you know, $2,000 for cameras that did this. I mean, schools have this in the education. There are, you know, swivels are what they call, and you can, you know, it'll just follow you around. Well, now with the iPad, it'll do the same thing. You just put it in one spot, and it'll just kind of follow you. If you have two people on the stage, it'll focus in on you. All of a sudden, another person will walk in. The whole thing will just like back up, and then both people will be in that thing. The person leaves the field of view, the iPad will automatically focus in on one. So what that does, it almost makes it like the person watching the event on Zoom will be able to, you know, it's like you have a cameraman, although it's just all automatic. It's all Apple doing their magic thing that they do. And so anyone that is at the meeting is going to see it just like anyone else. Anyone that joins in via Zoom is going to be able to just kind of follow along, and it's not just going to be a static image. It's a great tool. Not all the iPads have it, so you could try it out. And, you know, probably somebody that, you know, has an iPad Pro. It's just enable Zoom, turn on the camera. And if you're using iOS 15 or iPadOS 15, which you do have to be using, it all of a sudden you'll just see that center stage just kind of works, and it really is quite something. Works really, really well. So
Melissa, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Good morning, Dan. I have
Morning.
an older iPad Pro. I think it's like 2019. If I have iOS 15, center stage will be available?
I believe it will, yes. Let me see here. Well, center stage, I'll just do a quick Apple support, center stage, iPad, and see if I can quickly find it here. I'll add this link to the chat so everyone can see it. This is Apple's support page on center stage.
Perfect.
And it says here iPad Pro 5th generation. So I'm going to say it's pretty picky right now. But iPad 9th generation. But anyway, take a look at that link, and that might be a way to go. You know,
Thank you.
unfortunately, it doesn't work with every iPad, but if you buy a new iPad, make sure it does support it, because it's pretty cool. It really is impressive. So.
Okay. All right, Marcia, do you have a question related to the topic? Marcia, your hand is up. And you're muted.
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering if you got a separate monitor,
Center stage, it's called.
the Mac Mini. What are your thoughts on that?
Using
Can
it
we-
as hooking up a separate monitor to the iPad
Right.
mini, so it's like a dual display.
Yes.
Let's just go with, that's one area of work where Apple needs to put their engineers on. It's very, very limited. I wanted to do that with mine, Beth, my wife. I have an iPad Pro 12.9. Now I use it for demo stuff, but I wanted her to really embrace this and see what we could do with it, and kind of thing. And she's used to 3 monitors, so we, tried to hook it up, and it's just not the same. First of all, the app has to support, if you want full support for dual monitors, the app has to support it. Well, not a lot of developers, especially if you use an older app, it's not going to support it. So I would say it's not ready for prime time. You
Okay.
can do it, but it's not ready for prime time.
Okay. No, it's just that my son is very techie. I'm not with the Mac, and he
Right.
wanted to know about getting that.
It's very easy to hook up. You just need a cable.
Right.
You'll have to buy an HDMI to Lightning or HDMI to USB. They're not necessarily cheap. If you want Apples, it's like $50. Excuse me. But it's pretty easy to see, and you'll see the limitations right away. It'll work for some stuff, but you'll see the limitations right away. Maybe
Thank you so
iPad
much.
OS 16 will cover that. So
Yeah. So you are recommending the Pro though, correct?
yeah. In all honesty, I also have an iPad 7, and I think that's a great computer, or great iPad. And that's what we got for everyone at the school's iPad, the 7. It's $300, $320, and it does all right. I do have the Pro. I like the Face ID on the Pro.
Right.
The home button, I've gotten used to. The whole thing is, not to get on the iPad thing, but the beauty of not having a home button is I can pick this thing up this way. I can pick it up this way. We don't know
Right.
what orientation, and it doesn't really matter. But with a button, it sounds so silly, but with a button, is the button at the top? And I got it. Oh, wait, no, the button's down at the bottom. Again, sounds so silly, but it gets aggravating. With Face ID, you don't have to worry about that. So,
Right. But he uses it for his
Wait,
job.
can we
Yeah.
move on? Can we
Thank
move on,
you.
please? Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Marcia. Let's move on.
I see that someone asked about hot corners. So I'm going to quickly go over hot corners. That is part of mission control. But basically with hot corners, this is one of my favorite tricks to do is, I'm going to open up a few windows here again. Let's say I wanted to hide all of my windows. What I do is I have a hot corner set up in the lower left-hand corner of my computer. And when I move my cursor, you're going to see my cursor down here. When I move this to the lower left-hand corner, everything moves away. So I can see my desktop. That is a hot corner. Basically, what we can do is we can set each one of our 4 corners on the computer to do something. In my case here, I have it show the desktop. Pretty easy to set up. Just go to your system preferences up here. And what you'll need to do, there's 2 different places to get at it. You can get at it through your desktop and screensaver, as well as mission control. Either way is easy. All you have to do is just click on one of those. You'll see hot corners here. And when I click on it, here's where I can set. So right now, if I go in the upper left-hand corner, it's going to launch Launchpad. And then I just move it away. So all you have to do is just select what you want, and it'll go and do what you need to do when you move it into that corner. So I'm I don't like Launchpad there. It does annoy me, and I've been meaning to turn this off. So all I have to do is just go with the dash over in here. And now when I move my cursor in the upper left-hand corner, it no longer does it, goes back into that launch. So that's a quick version, how hot corners work. So let's go ahead and close these windows and we'll go on to the next one here. Let's see. All right, how do you stop a music app from playing on an Apple Watch or phone unless you specifically open it? Now, what I got out of this was when you when you play music, what'll happen is on the watch, it'll automatically go into now playing. And I believe what the person is asking, I gotta look up my notes here. What the person is asking, whoops, that's not what I wanted. So how does it work? How do you set it? And let me view my notes. Essentially, where'd it go? There we go. What you have to do is you have to go to the Apple Watch app on the iPhone. So let's go over to my iPhone here. And if I go to the Watch app, this is where I can show everything. Oh, it's not going to do it because this is my demo phone. So I can't, I'll just have to tell you how it works. But it's pretty easy. In the Watch app, what you'll do is you'll go to General, and then you will go and tap on Wake Screen. And then you'll want to turn off the auto launch audio. So basically, let's see if I can show you on my camera here. Watch. Let's go back over to my camera. One. All right, so I'm in my Watch app here, and essentially I just go into General, and under General, there is going to be a Wake Screen, and you'll want to make sure that, see it here, I'm reading it from Apple's notes. Tap Wake Screen and turn off auto launch. Tap General, then tap Wake Screen. General. I do not see that there. Very interesting. Search for Wake Screen. Basically, you want to turn that Wake Screen off. And then once you launch an application, a music application or a podcast application, it will no longer launch on the Apple Watch. I couldn't find it on my phone, unfortunately. But Apple's notes say that that's where you have to go.
It's under display and brightness.
It's under display and brightness. Okay, they move some stuff, and and sometimes their Apple support. I no longer am using beta on any of this stuff, but they move things around, and sometimes their documentation isn't updated right away. So thank you. So, all right, how do I rename a computer that I restored from a time machine backup? And with this, basically what you'll need to do is go to your system preferences here. And to rename your computer, where it's going to, where it shows up when you're on a network or anything like that, that is located under sharing here. And when I go to sharing, up at the top, says it's loading it here. Eventually, there it is. You're going to see that we have the name there. So basically, all you have to do is just click in here and rename it, and it should rename. What you'll want to do is restart the computer after that. So once you rename it, I always recommend restarting the computer, because it will also rename it on the local network, and sometimes there may be some lag there. So it's always a good idea, rename it, then restart it. But basically, this is what we do at the school. We just send out a custom command and name all the computers, and it's all done through the sharing under system preferences. So let's see, what else do I have here? Apple Music and family sharing. How does it work? I just did this with my mom. So I have Apple Sharing Family Plan. And with the family plan, what you are able to do is share your different services. And so I'm sharing my Apple. She wanted to watch Ted Lasso. So I shared my Apple TV with her, or actually in family sharing, I gave her one of my accounts. You can have 5 accounts with Apple Sharing. And then she can watch Apple TV, all the shows, but it's going to keep track of her. It's not a combined, it's not like I'm sharing my username or password. Works the same way with Apple Music. With Apple Music, what you are able to do is share that. And then when they log in under their account, that's what they're going to do, is they're going to log in with their account. Their account is associated with yours. You're paying for it. It's under your 5-account family plan. But they're going to be able to log in under their account, and any albums or playlists or anything that they create are going to be theirs. It is not going to be yours. It's not, you like a song, it isn't going to affect their algorithm on songs that they like. She's a big Elvis fan. So as she plays more and more Elvis, I'm not going to see those in my playlists. And as I play my Genesis, I'm a 80s fan. She's not going to see my Genesis, although it was impressive. We were coming back. She met us, my brother and I, for pizza last night, coming back from the bar. And I had Genesis on there, and she's like, "Oh, Phil Collins." I'm like, "Nice job, Mom." But basically, that's all you have to do. And the way that you would do that is when you are in your system preferences here, and you can do this on the Mac, the iPad, or the iPhone. Basically, you have to go into your iCloud settings here. You're going to see that we have family sharing. I do not, this is my demo account, so I do not have it set up. But if you were to go under family sharing here, oh, I do have it set up, sorry. You're going to see that my mom is there. If I wanted to add someone else, I could go and add someone else. Now, I'm not the administrator for this. I'm not logged in as the administrator, so you're going to see these are grayed out. But basically, all I have to do here is just click on the plus, and I can add someone, and then they're going to have access to everything. When I click on details here, you're going to see that she has Apple Music. So really all you have to do is make sure that you have a family plan, and the family, it's a pretty good deal. I pay $30 a month, and I get, the Apple News Plus, I get everything, the 2 terabytes and all that kind of stuff. But here's the beauty of that. Basically, I get 5 accounts with that. Now, we don't have any children, but Beth has her own account now. She shares the space on that 2 terabytes. So she doesn't have to have iCloud Plus or anything like, it's all under mine. And same thing with my mom. And I could add a couple other people if I wanted to. If Beth's parents had Apple TV, I could add them to my account. It doesn't cost me anymore, and they have access to everything. So it really works out well. And that's basically all you have to do is convert your plan to a family plan, and then you just go and add people. And again, you can do this on the iPad, the iPhone, or the Mac. So.
You have a question from Peter Danyuk. I hope I didn't butcher that too bad, Peter. Can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
I see it, Peter, here. You said, how do you stop purchases from coming through on your account?
Mm-hmm.
That is a good question. And I believe what you can do is you can limit that. Let's see here. I'm going to do a quick search here. Apple. family plan shared. Because when Beth purchases something, I can see what she's purchased, being that I'm the administrator, but if she's purchasing it under her account.
Yeah.
But it's share purchases. So I'm going to share this link here and hopefully this will help. And you might want to look at setup family sharing. This is where you can set all the different settings. So we're going to see this one. There's a few links that you'll want to take a look at this. So I put those in the chat and just take a look at those pages there, those pages, and click on a few of those links. I believe since I'm not the administrator on this account, this is my demo account, I can't go in there and change it, but I believe what you can do is limit some things on it. I don't know exactly how.
I've tried that unsuccessfully.
Did you?
Yeah. I set it up on my son's account, and his Walking Dead video games keep showing up on my account for payment.
Right. Yeah, let's see here. I do not have an answer for you on limit. Let's see here.
Apple seems to make it very hard.
Well, they want you to purchase stuff, that's for sure. Your plan, shared purchases. Yeah. Sorry, I don't have a quick answer for that. If I find anything, I'll pass it on to George and Sheeta, and
Thank you.
They can pass it on. So, all right. What do we have next? All right, Parallels and M1. Will it run Windows XP? So Michael has some programs that he uses with on Windows XP, 32-bit programs, and he's looking at getting a new computer. Can you use an M1 for that? Parallels does run, for those of you who are not familiar with Parallels, it's a virtualization, so you can run other operating systems on it. I'm experimenting with running Mac OS on it, and what I want to do for the Zoom class is be able to show Zoom in a virtual environment, so then I'm able to actually show you how Zoom works, as opposed, I can't really show you when I'm using Zoom, but maybe I can do it through virtualization. So anyway, what virtualization does is it allows you to basically run different operating systems on their own. So I could have Mac OS Lion, Mojave, all that running, basically on my Mac, all in separate windows, including XP and Ubuntu and, Red Hat, all those other operating systems. The question is, with the M1 chip, am I going to, or is Michael going to be able to run XP? And from what I've read from Parallels website, I went to their website and took a look, and the answer is no. The reason is XP runs on an Intel chip. Now, even though Parallels will run Windows, it will only run Windows 11 that is based on ARM, which is in beta. So I have an M1 that I use for the school, and I have Parallels on it, and I installed Windows 11, which ironically I was pretty impressed with. Side note. But basically, I was able to run Windows 11 on it. But what I had to do is get their beta version of the ARM version, because the M1 is no longer based on the Intel chipset. As we all know, it's based on the ARM chipset. Completely different. It's kind of like going from PowerPC to Intel. Now we're at the M1. We're going to ARM. Completely different programs, or code, I guess you could say. So Parallels, short story, said, we will be able to run Windows, but Windows 11. We will not be able to run Windows XP. We will not be able to run Windows 98. We will not be able to run Windows 9 or 10 or whatever, all those different versions that are Intel based. So no, you'll have to stick with an Intel Mac. which is the good thing is the Intel Macs. I mean, that's what I use. They're great machines. The M1s are nice. I mean, they get all the hype, but the M1, the Intel MacBook Pros are still very, very, they're still one heck of a machine. So if you want to run those older programs, you'll have to stick with an Intel machine. So,
Brian Hendricks, do you have a question or comment on that?
Oh, not a question. I was just, Windows 10 also works. Windows 10 has an ARM version as well. I run
Yeah.
10 and 11, so.
it does have to, like
But it has to be
an
ARM.
It has to be ARM. Mhm.
I have the same issue with, because I'm a Linux engineer, same issue in Linux. It has to be
An ARM-based.
ARM-based. It has to be Arch 64. So you can't run Red Hat anymore because there is not a Red
Oh,
Hat.
good. Yeah.
So,
And I talked with, I was on a webinar with Parallels. They were a guest on one of the other user groups that I work with, and they had somebody in there, and that question was asked, like, are you going to support this? And he's short, basically no, unless something happens down the road, but it's too difficult to do all that, so basically it's going to be ARM based.
so what I read is the good news is Windows will continue in the future to have an ARM version of Windows. So
Yeah. And the ARM, like I said, I don't use it that often, but it was impressive. I mean, it installed and it looked good, and it really worked well on the M1. But if you use an XP, not going to go. So.
All right, Kenna, do you have a question related to this topic?
Basically, yeah, just a real quick one. Instead of using Parallels, why not just split the drive and put Windows on one side?
Because you can't, the Mac, no boot camp. There's no boot camp anymore. Not with the M1s.
Okay.
Because it doesn't have an Intel chip. So.
Right. I have the older one. That's why I was asking. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, all yours, Dan.
All right, I'll go on to the next one here. Let's see here. Image capture. This is the one that somebody texted earlier when we first started out, and she said it just magically worked. So my solution with that, when you have something like this, something doesn't work, image capture disconnects from the phone, the traditional things are, and I would say do it in this order, try a different USB port. Hardly ever does that work, but it's an easy thing. Just try a different USB port if something's not working. Try a different cable. Again, actually that one might, cables do go bad. You would not believe some of the cables that I have. Well, you can see this one here. I'm surprised it still works, but we've all seen these cables here.
Ooh.
Yeah, but it works yet.
Okay.
So, try a different cable. And, I've just threw away a couple cables, because we've been using these cables for so long. I could be using a cable that's 5 years old and I wouldn't know it, and they go bad. There's computer chips in some of these cables. So it's not just a simple wire, so things do degrade. Also, what I have found out is, I have my desktop here, my coffee, my water. If I pour water in here, guess what happens? Condensation comes down. And I've had a brand new Lightning just sit in the condensation. I didn't spill, but it was condensation on my desk, corrosion on it. So I had to throw it away. So you never know what happens with these cables. It's not like I intentionally got it wet. I didn't spill anything, but being that it sat against my glass, got condensation on it, boom, it was a goner. So try a different cable. And then one of the other things to do, this is the favorite thing that the other two guys like to recommend over at the school, and I fight it, but it works. And I don't want it to work. I don't think it should be this, but it works. Restart the computer.
Yeah. Melissa, I have a question for you. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right. Did you watch the Q&A video that I did 2 weeks ago that also had this question? Your question here?
Well, it's been a persistent problem for me. And,
Right. And
Dan, while it started working this morning, as I watched the conference right now, it stopped working.
Oh,
So,
God.
Right,
you know,
so-
I'm taxing my machine. So
Well,
Cheetah, I will go
Okay.
back and look at your information as well.
all right, well, let me give you a quick rundown. First of all, Sheeta. Second of all, the image capture app has never been stable, ever. I've used it for years. It's never been stable. So this is what happens. After use, it's just going to stop. At some point, not work well, and then it'll come back, and then it will decide to behave properly. But look at the video, because of image capture and it stopped being reliable, I started using Adobe Bridge. And Adobe Bridge will allow you to pull the images from your camera and give you more options. Some, you can't sort it the way you can in image capture, but it'll give you more options than you have in image capture.
Great.
And Adobe Bridge is free to use, even if you don't have an Adobe subscription. You can download it and use it, and it's a great file management program for your computer, period. So
Fabulous.
watch the video, and you'll well, I just told you what the video was about, so there you go. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is Brian.
Yes.
I tried that Bridge program after you mentioned it.
Yes.
It is amazing. It is the
Oh.
only program I found that detected my Canon M50 when I plugged it in using the USB port.
Mm-hmm.
All this other time I had to open the bottom, pull the card out, put it in the computer, do the work that way.
Mm-hmm.
That
Great.
program detected my camera, the only one that did. Canon's didn't do it. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know why, but
Yes.
for some reason, Adobe did it right.
When it comes to Bridge, and I've been a fan of Bridge for decades, most people really just discount Bridge and don't use it. Adobe Bridge is an absolutely amazing program to use. And again, for management of your files, copy, and doing just about anything, that is the program to use. It's much better than the Mac OS Finder. So anyway, back to you, Dan.
And it's free. It's free.
Yes, it's free. Okay.
Another trick to use is, I have not had that much problem with image capture, but I know everyone's different. And if the Bridge sounds like it's more powerful, which is awesome.
Mhm.
But what you can do is create a new user account and see if it works on that. And that will help you determine, is it something in your user folder or is it something with the computer or a cable? If it does it on both user accounts, then you know it's outside of your user folder. It's not software related in your user folder side of it. That could be hardware or operating system related. But if it does work in the second account, we did this all the time at Apple. If it works on the second account, but it doesn't work on the other account, your main account, well, then you know you got a conflict somewhere, and maybe start, restart and quit all of your apps and just see how it works. And you have to do a process of elimination. So that's a nice little trick, is create a new user account and see if it works. It works across whenever you're having a problem. It's just a great way to do it. So, and it's easy to do. System preferences, users, create a new account.
Great.
Thank you.
Lawrence Decker, do you have a question that relates to this topic?
Well, I've made an observation recently and used to use image capture, but the current Mac OSs have an app in the utilities folder called Screenshot. And although I have not worked with it, if I use Screenshot to capture either select windows or the whole screen, I've also noticed that there are buttons in Screenshot that allow for a recording. This is built into the Mac OS.
Right, but that is a totally separate app from how image capture works.
Right.
Totally
Image
separate.
capture
True,
is,
but
Yeah,
it does
totally
the same
different.
thing, I think.
Absolutely not. It does
I
not.
disagree. Thank you. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. Go
yeah,
ahead.
image capture will capture images from things where the screenshot will take screenshots of movies of your screen, right? And in a very, very simple terms. All right, so let's go on to the next one. Is it okay to update to Mac OS Monterey? I would say yes, now it is. And, you know, I'm one of those people that I'm very reluctant to update to Mac OS. On the iPhone and the iPad, I will usually update those within a week or two, you know, if not sooner. I'll admit it. I put betas on those devices, and generally they're really pretty good. But the Mac, I try to stay away from that. And a perfect example, I was a little worried about this today's thing last week, and here's the reason why. I had a beta version of Mac OS Monterey, and whenever it worked hard, it would crash. All of a sudden you hear the fans and it'd crash. It would be sleeping. I'd have the lid closed, sitting on the couch, sitting, you know, the thing sitting on the floor, you know, leaning up against the couch. Boom, it'd just restart on its own. And it would do this consistently. Well, it turned out to be the beta. They got a new beta, luckily, before this. And now I actually took myself off of the beta. So I'm not even running beta because they came out with 12.1 yesterday, thankfully. So I'm no longer using beta, but you have to be careful on the Mac. Point being, you have to be careful. So is it okay to update to Mac OS Monterey? Yes, I think it is. And they just came out with 12.1. And, you know, they didn't make many visual changes in Mac OS Monterey. It's kind of like if you go the old school, they had Leopard and Snow Leopard. Leopard was a new operating system, and then Snow Leopard, they really didn't add too many features. It was more bug fixes. They haven't admitted this with Mojave, but Big Sur, I had a few issues. You know, we had a lot of issues with it at the school. I mean, we're dealing with roughly 800 computers. We see patterns. Big Sur was a pattern. Monterey, we have put Monterey on a lot of them, and they're more responsive. It works with our MDM. So I think what they did with Monterey is they just cleaned up the code a little bit, and added some new features too. But for the most part, I would recommend, yes, upgrade to Monterey. You shouldn't have a problem. So,
Dan, have you seen Monterey on any Intel machines?
oh yeah, I'm using it on my computer. Yeah, and
Okay.
at the school. Yep, absolutely. Mhm.
Okay. All
Mhm.
right.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, let's see what we have next here. I think we're getting close to the end here, and actually our timing is pretty good, right? Parallels, will it run XP? We talked about that, so I can skip right on by that. That actually might, let's see here, there's one more. This one was asked today. How does the shelf work on the iPad with?
Can I ask you not to answer that question?
Sure.
Because we have an iPad class that extensively goes into this stuff.
Okay.
And so I would like to, and I do apologize, but I would like you to not answer that question.
Will do.
Okay. All right. So we're open for other questions if you are, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, basically, this is my last slide. So yeah, we are Q&A, whatever, whatever anyone has. So I'm looking at the chat here. Is it okay to I'm just randomly kind of looking at things here. Is it okay to update to iOS 15 on the iPhone 10? Yes. Yes, absolutely. iOS 15 and iPad OS 15 have been really, really stable for me. And now granted, I'm not using a 10. I did trade the 10 in to get my 13. They gave me $800 for that 10. Really surprising. So it was like a no-brainer. So I can use my iPhone 12 for my training and videos and stuff like that. So it's great. But basically, yes, iPad and iPad OS 15. Now, I know this isn't, you were talking about the iPhone, but the iPad, to me, makes the iPad so much more productive. I use my iPad far more than I ever thought I would. But yes, there are some tricks like with the shelf and multi-gestures and all that, but it does make the iPad really, and I'm really pushing for having the iPads at the school. Just basically take those MacBook Airs away from all the students. We give MacBook Airs to 9th grade and up, and I would love to just have them all on iPads. I think that we could easily do that. So.
All right, great. Mitch, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, Dan, you and I have been going back and
Yeah.
forth on emails about setting up the new custom domain on Apple.
Oh, yes, yes.
And I got through all their steps. It was very easy until I got to, okay, we're ready to check your email. And I didn't have an email set up with my new domain, and found out that that was going to be very expensive to set one up with GoDaddy. So I switched to Hover and transferred my domain. I'm in the process of doing that now. But do you have any more comments on that?
Well,
Do you know anybody who has done that?
Yeah, so what we're talking about, Mitch, like you said, we've been emailing back and forth. He's been trying to use Apple's new custom domain service. And for those that are not familiar with that, basically what you are able to do is now use Apple's mail service with your domain. So right now I'm Dan Wassink at mac.com as an example. Well, I have danwassink.com registered. So what I'm able to do using Apple's servers, Apple's mail, what I'm able to do is create my own email address. It could be Dan at danwassink.com. It could be Beth at bethwassink.com. So you're able to use Apple's mail service for your own domain. So what Mitch has been talking about, he tried to do it with GoDaddy. And for those of you that are on GoDaddy, I'm sorry. But they try to nickel and dime you. You can do it with GoDaddy, but they don't make it easy because, oh, we can do this. Oh, you can do that. They just nickel and dime you. So Hover, which is what we use at the school, is another domain service. And essentially, Mitch, I'm working on in my head here how to create a tutorial on it because I've done it. So maybe what I can do is I can create a tutorial on it. But basically, what you need to do, what you do is you have to pay for iCloud. So you have to have a paid service, could be the 99 cents a month. And then with your domain, so it could be at Hover, it could be at GoDaddy, it could be wherever you want. What you have to do is you have to point that domain over to Apple's mail servers. And Apple gives you clear instructions on how to do that, although it is a little geeky. So you got to be, but basically then what happens is if someone sends an email to Dan at danwassink.com, it goes over to, I use Enum. So Enum goes over like Hover. Basically it goes over to Enum. They're my register, so they hold it. Enum will look at this and say, oh, that's mail. That's an MX record is what they call it. That's mail. So what you do is in Enum, in Hover, in wherever, you're going to enter in an MX record, and that MX record is going to point to Apple's servers. So now that mail is going to go to Enum. Enum's going to say, I can't handle this. I don't do any mail. And it's going to point it over to Apple Mail, and then Apple Mail will handle it from there. And that's basically all it's doing. The Enum, GoDaddy, Hover, all they are is just a, like a road sign on a highway, the highway sign, this exit, and it's just saying, this is where you need to go. But it doesn't actually do anything. You don't have to sign up for their mail services or anything like that because you use an Apple. But what I'm going to do, Mitch, because it's complicated to really get into it here, but I have done it. I've experimented with it, and I'm going to figure out how to create a lesson on it. So, look for that in the next few weeks. I'm going to try to get it done. So sorry, I have to put you on hold.
That'd be great. The only part I got stuck on was the email part.
Right.
Because I didn't have an email set up. And so I just set one. I'm just going to set one up with Hover, but I don't know, based on what you're telling me, if it's necessary to pay them $20 a year for.
Right. No, you do not need to do that.
Okay.
No. So I'll get something
that.
created and put it on the site, so then you can see it from there. So,
Great, thanks.
let's see here. Going through here.
No, Don Peacock, can you unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Yeah, hey, Dan, I
Hi.
take a lot of pictures with my Nikon, and because I have cloud set up anyway, they end up going to the cloud and they end up on my iPhone and iPad.
Yeah.
Is there any way to have them just stay on my Mac?
Then what you'll need to do is go into photos on the Mac. So I'm going to go to photos here. And essentially, get started here because it's updated. So I got, there we go. When I go up to the preferences here under photos, we go to our preferences. Under iCloud, you're going to see iCloud photos. Just uncheck that. If you uncheck that, anything you add to this library will no longer go into iCloud. It will only be on the Mac. Now, saying that, if you add a photo from your phone, it's not going to show up on the Mac because it basically disconnects it. There's
Okay.
not a way that you can customize that to say, you know what, if I put a photo on my Mac, I don't want it to go on my iPhone, but if I take a photo on my iPhone, I want it to go on my Mac. You can't do, you know, it's a shared library, so it's all or nothing.
Thank you.
All right. All right, Michael Slider, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Great presentation, Dan. Question for you. You've been using picture-in-a-picture on your Zoom window. What app are you using to do that? I've been trying that forever.
So this is all new to me. And I'm kind of moving into this area here. In fact, what I'm going to be doing, so I have a class tomorrow, productivity tips on how to use the Mac. And I'm even going to live stream it on YouTube. So basically what I've kind of changed everything up. Everything is new, except for Zoom. I'm still using Zoom, obviously. But essentially what I'm using is it's popular by gamers. It's called OBS. And what I did is I purchased the Ecamm, which is far better than OBS. And here, if it's okay, I can kind of show you what I'm looking at here. Let me go to me here. So I'll show you this first. Actually, now I can't, it's just a little screen. First of all, I bought a switch deck so I can switch my scenes. Oh, you want to go to the iPad? I click a button on here. You're looking at my iPad. Oh, let's go back over to my Mac. There's my Mac. You know, that kind of thing. And essentially what this does is this Ecamm, E-C-A-M-M, essentially what it does is you can set up different scenes. And let's go to output. I might have to hide main controls. I don't know where it is because I'm still learning the software. But essentially what you can do is you can plug in different cameras. So I have one of my digital SLRs. That's what I'm looking at right now. That is plugged into a capture card, which plugs into the Mac. Ecamm looks at that camera. And now I can, that's one camera. The desktop is another camera. My iPad is another camera. My iPhone is another camera. I have a webcam. That's another camera. So this Ecamm takes all these cameras and basically what it does.
Dan,
no, anyway, it allows me to easily switch between these cameras, and I can overlay these cameras. So this little circle here that we're looking at, that is a camera overlay. You know, think of Photoshop, it's a layer. That is a layer on top of my screen share. And if I wanted to add my iPad to this, I could add my iPad to it. You know, basically I'm just layering these cameras one on top of another. And then I can set up scenes with these different layers, and then I can easily switch between these. So Ecamm. OBS is the free version. It's very clunky, made popular by gamers, but now what basically what, I'm able to switch things around. I can even go as far as if you wanted to see, let's see here. let's go to, no, I don't know where it is. So, okay. I'll have to do another cancel. There we go. I'll have to do something else. I'm still learning the software. So Ecamm, I can just tell you that. So, and it allows me to do a lot of different things. I can even go as far as it didn't work, so I had to create different slides, but my goal is to have this iPad here run a keynote presentation through an HDMI cable into a camera input on Ecamm. And then all I have to do, like these questions here, I can just easily just swipe through them. I'll see my notes, but what you will see is the actual slide presentation. So it opens up the door for a lot of stuff. And, you know, that's basically what I'm working on for my site in the future, is more stuff like this. So.
And I want to say it's really interesting because I did a presentation a couple of weeks ago where I stated that there are a lot of pieces of equipment that are used by gamers that are really useful to everyone.
Yeah.
And that their quality, you may think it may not be good quality. Their quality is excellent. It's really excellent. So
it really, it's amazing what, you know, it has a negative connotation. I'm not a gamer. So it has a negative connotation, you know, like, oh, gamer software. But I'm telling you, it's really quite something.
Right.
Let me see
a pair of the best headphones that I've ever used and used for my tutorials is a gamer headphone.
Yeah.
The quality is amazing. All right.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Dan?
Yes, I believe the price for that box would be of interest to some of us.
It's elgato.com and it's called the Stream Deck.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
How much is it?
Yeah, how much is it?
I think it's 100 and I got the 12, 16, I can't count, 15 button. 150 bucks. They have a larger one, which is 250 bucks. You know, and it basically it's keyboard shortcuts. You know, when I go into the software, what I'm doing is I'm setting up keyboard shortcuts for this. And you know, you can see my processor speed and all that kind of stuff. And basically you just click on what you need to do and it works. But the key is using streaming software like what I have here. You know,
Brian Hendricks, do you have one?
Yes, and I live by it. With this, the minute I start, I'm a Tennessee naturalist, and I do a lot of presentations for teaching our classes, where it's a year course where we teach you to be a naturalist here in Tennessee. And a lot of presentations and classes we have, I decided I'm a birder, so I wanted to do the bird class. And I said, all right, I need to set one of those up. I'm an IT guy, shouldn't be too hard. I went through almost everything he was talking about. Do I want to use OBS? Do I want to use Ecamm? Ecamm's $16 a month. That sold it to me. Now everything is something a month.
Yeah.
Remember the days when you just bought a piece of software and you had it for life and updated? That's gone. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yes. And you can see like I said, there's my monitor, my microphone that I use. But the big thing, I did not realize how people were moving around so fast, because I've never done videos. I'm a photographer. I've never been into videos. And when I found out they were using the Stream Deck and how it worked, oh my gosh. Not only do I use it in the video production, but I keep it on all the time now. If I need to go check, okay, did I order that on Amazon or not? I literally don't have to do anything on the computer. I push one button and it starts the page of my orders and what's coming. I mean, literally, I just push the button on the deck. I don't have to move the mouse over to an icon. And you can have multiple windows on the Stream Deck.
Right. And
get
there's
the
another
smaller
one. There's another one out there called Loop Deck, which takes it a little step further. Stream Deck is just buttons. Loop Deck especially for photographers,
Yeah.
you actually have dials. So now what you're able to do is adjust your levels and all that by using dials, and it has the buttons. So
Why
it's-
did you have to say that?
Okay.
Why did you have to say that?
Okay, all right. Do we
yeah,
have?
I'm looking at ordering one today when we get done with this, just so you know, if you look up Loop Deck, I've never used it.
Stop! Stop!
It's on sale today. Today's the last day for their holiday shopping.
There you go, Brian. Brian, we got Brian.
But Stream
All right,
Deck is a lot easier to use. So, yeah.
All right, do we have one last question? Okay, all right, then let's
All right.
call it a wrap. Dan,
All right.
thank you.
You can visit
Um,
you can visit my stuff at Dan's, somebody that put the link, danstutorials.com. It's just a link there. And right now I have it set up where you pay what you want. You know, you can select if you can afford a little bit more. I appreciate it, but I also know that that's just not how it works. Sometimes, you know, we're in situations where we can't. So you decide what you want to pay and when you want to pay. No matter what you pay, you get all the benefits. So just go to Dan's
Great.
Tutorials and you can read all about it there.
Great, and I'd like to advise everyone, please copy the chat. There's some interesting links and interesting information in the chat, aside from us having fun before some of you came in. So you probably won't see that because you came in late, but please copy the chat. And George, it's all yours.